Good afternoon. My name is Kaylin, and I'm one of the librarians in the Reader Services Department here, right around the corner. On behalf of our department and the Allen County Public Library, we want to welcome you all to our Seasons Readings program. We are fortunate to have staff members from throughout the building and across several departments here sharing their talents and time with us for this event. Beginning a few months ago, some colleagues and I began searching for a variety of stories and poems that celebrate the month of December. I think we compiled an entertaining and interesting mix of both classic and contemporary selections that we look forward to sharing with you today. And we will be sprinkling in a few holiday movie trivia questions as well. Are some of you holiday movie fans? Yeah. We want to extend a special welcome to seniors who are joining us virtually today at several retirement communities in the area. We hope you all enjoy the program. And for those joining us in person, free cookies, cocoa, and candy canes are available right over there. Before we begin our main program, I did want to commemorate an important anniversary today. 80 years ago on this date, December 7th, American troops were surprised by a Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, which then ushered the United States into World War II. So in honor of Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day and the lives lost there, could you all please observe with me a brief moment of silence? Thank you. Now, our first selection is a short story from a new holiday edition of Chicken Soup for the Soul. The author, Leslie Lagerstrom, writes from Minnesota about a Christmas Eve dinner that did not go as planned. Her story, The Pie Incident of 2005, will be read by Emily from the Lincoln Collection.
Thank you, Kaylin. The Pie Incident of 2005. At 4:30 p.m. on December 24th, 2005, it was already pitch black outside. From the window, I saw her walking up the driveway. I couldn't make out her face in the dark, but I knew it was her because she had already activated her battery-operated blinking holiday light necklace. And if that wasn't enough for a grand entrance, she donned a second necklace made of sleigh bells and jingled loudly with every step she took. My mother, Carol, had arrived. When she took off her coat, the grandchildren giggled with delight to see her trademark red velvet vest featuring a glitter-outlined Santa and reindeer. Standing in front of her fans, she showed off a bag full of presents in one hand and in the other, a box from a local bakery that contained her dessert assignment, pecan pie. Carol had been a connoisseur of all things sweet since childhood. In fact, finding the perfect sweet for any occasion was her superpower. With no room in my refrigerator, I instructed her to put the pie in the garage. One of the few good things about Minnesota winters is the free refrigerator outdoors, or insulated garage in this case, provides. The evening went on as planned, marked by lots of laughter. After finishing dinner, we waited the customary 5 minutes to let our stomachs settle, and then told Carol we were ready for dessert. She was on. This part of the world was her show, and she loved it. She retrieved the pie from the garage and marched in humming Joy to the World as she proudly placed the box in the center of the table. Oohs and ahs ensued, but from my vantage point, I could see something wrong. A semicircular hole in the center of the box. As she opened the box to reveal the dessert, Carol was so pleased that she didn't notice the little mouse sitting comfortably in the middle of the pie, using its little paws to hold its own little piece. Realizing she was oblivious to our extra guest, I shouted the only word of warning I could think of. Mouse! It took everyone a few seconds to comprehend what I was trying to communicate, and then there was a collective shriek, followed by aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents from the ages of 80 to 8 running from the room, leaving chairs tipped over in their wake. Swooping in to save the day, my husband slammed the box shut and walked out to the backyard. He returned without the pie, and then the real trouble began. "Where's the pie?" my mom demanded. My husband calmly explained that he had left the box and its contents outside. It was clear to him and every guest, except for my mother, that there would be no pie for dessert this year. But Carol continued, "Well, what about my pie? Why did you leave it outside? Can't we just cut around the part where the mouse was sitting?" Utterly speechless, my husband looked for help. Mom, no, that's disgusting. We don't know how much of the pie the mouse actually touched, and we could all get sick," I explained, wondering why I even had to explain this to her. Relentless, Carol looked at us and said, "But I paid $18.95 for that pie." Feeling sorry for her Nana, the youngest grandchild chimed in, "I want pie too." Sobbing, another younger one pleaded, "But what about the mouse? He'll die in the cold. We have to let him back in." Regaining his ability to reason, my husband looked at the out-of-control crowd and addressed their concerns one by one. "I bet we have some Christmas cookies instead of pie. That will suffice for dessert." Then he gently explained to the young animal lover, "Honey, the mouse is plenty warm from eating all that pie. I'm sure tomorrow he will figure out how to get back in our garage the way he did the first time and bring all of his friends." Then his attention turned to my mom, and he could tell by the look on her face that she wasn't having any of it. Motivated by her sweet tooth and believing the amount she paid canceled out for any disease that the mouse might spread, she once again firmly explained, "I paid $18.95 for that pie." At this point, regrettably, I lost my temper. "For Pete's sake, Mom, we are not eating that pie. I will give you the $18.95 if it means that much to you." Awkward silence followed for what seemed like an eternity, until a hard-of-hearing guest, who apparently somehow missed the entire exchange, asked, "What's for dessert?" creating a loud eruption of laughter. Now, we finally refer to this as the pie incident of 2005, and the story has taken on a life of its own. On Christmas Eve, it is a tradition for one of the original attendees to tell their own recollection of the event. Of course, right before dessert is served. It was the subject of a third-grade writing assignment, aptly titled Mouse Pie, and has been the impetus for my mother to receive mouse-themed Christmas ornaments every year since.
Thank you, Emily. So, yes, if we have any mishaps on our Christmas Eve dinner, we can be thankful. It probably won't be a mouse, at least, right? Okay. Next, Melissa from our children's department will read a story about Kwanzaa by Angela Shelf-Medeiros. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Kwanzaa, it's a cultural holiday started in 1966 by a college professor in California that is now celebrated all over the world from December 26th through January 1st each year by people of African descent. According to the introduction in this picture book, Kwanzaa is based on ancient African harvest celebrations and customs and is a celebration of the past, the present, and the future of people of African descent. The story is entitled 7 Spools of Thread. Melissa.
In a small African village in the country of Ghana, there lived an old man and his 7 sons. After the death of his wife, the old man became both father and mother to the boys. The 7 brothers were handsome young men. Their skin was as smooth and dark as the finest mahogany wood. Their limbs were as straight and strong as warriors' spears. But they were a disappointment to their father. From morning until night, the family's small home was filled with the sound of the brothers quarreling. As soon as the sun brought forth a new day, the brothers began to argue. They argued all morning about how to tend the crops. They argued all afternoon about the weather. "It is hot," said the middle son. "No, a cool breeze is blowing," said the second son. They argued all evening about when to return home. "It will be dark soon," the youngest said. "Let's finish this now and begin anew tomorrow." "No, it's too early to stop," called the third son. "Can't you see the sun is setting?" shouted the sixth son. And so it would continue until the moon beamed down and the stars twinkled in the sky. At mealtime, the young men argued until the stew was cold and the fufu was hard. "You gave him more than you gave me," whined the third son. "I divided the food equally," said their father. "I will starve with only this small portion on my plate," complained the youngest. "If you don't want it, I'll eat it," said the oldest son. He grabbed a handful of meat from his brother's plate. "Stop being so greedy," said the youngest. And so it went on every night. It was often morning before the 7 brothers finished dinner. One sad day, the old man died and was buried. At sunrise the next morning, the village chief called the brothers before him. "Your father has left an inheritance," said the chief. The brothers whispered excitedly among themselves. "I know my father left me everything because I am the oldest son," said the oldest. "I know my father left me everything because I am the youngest son," said the youngest. "He left everything to me," said the middle son. "I know I was his favorite." "Hey," said the second son, "everything is mine." The brothers began shouting and shoving. Soon all 7 were rolling around on the ground, hitting and kicking each other. "Stop that this instant," the chief shouted. The brothers stopped fighting. They shook the dust off their clothes and sat before the chief, eyeing each other suspiciously. "Your father has decreed that all of his property and possessions will be divided among you equally," said the chief. "But first, by the time the moon rises tonight, you must learn how to make gold out of these spools of silk thread. If you do not, you will be turned out of your home as beggars." The oldest brother received blue thread, the next brother red, the next yellow, the middle son was given orange thread, the next green, the next black, and the youngest son received white thread. For once, the brothers were speechless. The chief spoke again. "From this moment forward, you must not argue among yourselves or raise your hands in anger toward one another. If you do, your father's property and all his possessions will be divided equally among the poorest of the villagers. Go quickly, you only have a little time." The brothers bowed to the chief and hurried away. When the 7 Ashanti brothers arrived at their farm, something unusual happened. They sat side by side, from the oldest to the youngest, without saying anything unkind to each other. "My brothers," the oldest said after a while, "let us shake hands and make peace among ourselves." "Let us never argue or fight again," said the youngest brother. The brothers placed their hands together and held each other tightly. For the first time in years, peace rested within the walls of their home. "My brothers," said the third son quietly, "surely our father would not turn us into the world as beggars." "I agree," said the middle son. "I do not believe our father would have given us the task of turning thread into gold if it were impossible." "Could it be," said the oldest son, "that there might be small pieces of gold in this thread?" The sun beamed hotly overhead. Yellow streams of light crept inside the hut. Each brother held up his spool of thread. The beautiful colors sparkled in the sunlight, but there were no nuggets of gold in these spools. "I'm afraid not, my brother," said the sixth son, "but that was a good idea." "Thank you, my brother," said the oldest. "Could it be," said the youngest, "that by making something from this thread, we could earn a fortune in gold?" "Perhaps," said the oldest, "we could make cloth out of this thread and sell it. I believe we can do it." "This is a good plan," said the middle son, "but we do not have enough of any one color to make a full bolt of cloth." "What if," said the third son, "we weave the thread together to make a cloth of many colors?" "But our people do not wear cloth like that," said the fifth son. "We wear only cloth of one color." "Maybe," said the second, "we could make a cloth that is so special, everyone will want to wear it." "My brothers," said the sixth son, "we could finish faster if we all worked together." "I know we can succeed," said the middle son. The 7 Ashanti brothers went to work. Together, they cut the wood to make a loom. The younger brothers held the pieces together, while the older brothers assembled the loom. They took turns weaving cloth out of their spools of thread. They made a pattern of stripes and shapes that looked like the wings of birds. They used all the colors: blue, red, yellow, orange, green, black, and white. Soon, the brothers had several pieces of beautiful multicolored cloth. When the cloth was finished, the 7 brothers took turns neatly folding the brightly colored fabric. Then they placed it into 7 baskets and put the baskets on their heads. The brothers formed a line from the oldest to the youngest and began the journey to the village. The sun slowly made a golden path across the sky. The brothers hurried down the long, dusty road as quickly as they could. As soon as they entered the marketplace, the 7 Ashanti brothers called out, "Come and buy the most wonderful cloth in the world! Come and buy the most wonderful cloth in the world!" They unfolded a bolt and held it up for all to see. The multicolored fabric glistened like a rainbow. A crowd gathered around the 7 Ashanti brothers. "Oh," said one villager, "I have never seen cloth so beautiful. Look at the unusual pattern." "Ah," said another, "this is the finest fabric in all the land. Feel the texture." The brothers smiled proudly. Suddenly, a man dressed in magnificent robes pushed his way to the front of the crowd. Everyone stepped back respectfully. It was the king's treasurer. He rubbed the cloth between the palms of his hands. Then he held it up to the sunlight. "What a thing of beauty," he said, fingering the material. "This cloth will make a wonderful gift for the king. I must have all of it." The 7 brothers whispered together. "Cloth fit for a king," said the oldest, "should be purchased at a price only a king can pay. It is yours for 1 bag of gold." "Sold," said the king's treasurer. He untied his bag of gold and spilled out many pieces for the brothers. The 7 Ashanti brothers ran out of the marketplace and back down the road to their village. A shining silver moon began to creep up in the sky. Panting and dripping with sweat, the brothers threw themselves before the chief's hut. "Oh, chief," said the oldest, "we have turned the thread into gold." The chief came out of his hut and sat upon a stool. The oldest brother poured the gold out onto the ground. "Have you argued or fought today?" asked the chief. "No, my chief," said the youngest. "We have been too busy working together to argue or fight." "Then you have learned the lesson your father sought to teach you," said the chief. "All that he had is now yours." The older brothers smiled happily, but the youngest son looked sad. "What about the poor people in the village?" he asked. "We receive an inheritance, but what will they do?" "Perhaps," said the oldest, "we can teach them how to turn thread into gold." The chief smiled. "You have learned your lesson very well." The 7 Ashanti brothers taught their people carefully. The village became famous for its beautiful multicolored cloth, and the villagers prospered. From that day until this, the 7 Ashanti brothers have worked together, farming the land, and they have worked peacefully in honor of their father.
Thank you, Melissa. So that story illustrated the Kwanzaa goals of harmony and cooperation and working together, as you may have known. Okay, I promised you a couple of trivia questions, so let's see who has watched A Charlie Brown Christmas, maybe a time or two. Okay. In A Charlie Brown Christmas, what does Charlie Brown complain Christmas has become? I'll give you some choices. A, too noisy, B, too commercial, C, too expensive, or D, too much work. What do you think? Which one? D, too much work? Maybe so, but that is not what Charlie Brown said. Do you know? You see it? He says we've become too commercial. That's what he says. How about one more? Frosty the Snowman. Maybe you've seen that one. Okay. In Frosty the Snowman, what are the first words Frosty says when he comes to life? We have A, Merry Christmas, B, I'm alive, C, Happy Birthday, or D, Where am I? Happy birthday, you are right. You can have an extra cookie, okay? All right, we're going to be shifting gears a bit now, moving to A nostalgic remembrance by humorist David Sedaris of a cluster of snow days that canceled school, delighting him and his 5 siblings, but pushing his poor mother to her limits. It's called Let It Snow and is included in his collection Holidays on Ice. For those of you who don't know, his sense of humor is very sarcastic. So this is one of those kids don't do this at home kind of thing, all right? One critic noted it's almost impossible to read David Sedaris without laughing. So we'll see if Anna from our Reader Services Department can manage that today. Anna?
In Binghamton, New York, winter meant snow. And though I was young when we left, I was able to recall great heaps of it and use that memory as evidence that North Carolina was, at best, a third-rate institution. What little snow there was would usually melt in an hour or two after hitting the ground, and there you'd be in your windbreaker and unconvincing mittens forming a lumpy figure made mostly of mud. When I was in 5th grade, we got lucky. Snow fell, and for the first time in years, it accumulated. School was canceled, and 2 days later, we got lucky again. There were 8 inches on the ground, and rather than melting, it froze. On the 5th day of our vacation, my mother had a little breakdown. Our presence had disrupted the secret life she led while we were at school, and when she could no longer take it, she threw us out. It wasn't a gentle request, but something closer to an eviction. "Get out of my house," she said. We reminded her that it was our house too, and then she opened the front door and shoved us into the carport. "And stay out," she shouted. My sisters and I went down the hill and sledded with the other children from the neighborhood. A few hours later, we returned home, surprised to find that the door was still locked. "Oh, come on," we said. I rang the bell, and when no one answered, we went to the window and saw our mother in the kitchen watching television. Normally, she waited until 5 o'clock to have a drink, but for the past few days, she'd been making an exception. Drinking didn't count if you followed a glass of wine with a cup of coffee. So she had both a goblet and a mug positioned before her on the counter. "Hey," we yelled, "open the door, it's us." We knocked on the pane, and without looking in our direction, she refilled her goblet and left the room. We pounded again and again, and when our mother failed to answer, we went around back and threw snowballs at her bedroom window. "You are going to be in so much trouble when Dad gets home," we shouted. And in response, my mother pulled the drapes. Dusk approached, and as it grew colder, it occurred to us that we could possibly die. It happened, surely. Selfish mothers wanted the house to themselves, and their children were discovered years later, frozen like mastodons in blocks of ice. My sister Gretchen suggested that we call our father, but none of us knew his number, and he probably wouldn't have done anything anyway. He'd gone to work specifically to escape our mother, and between the weather and her mood, it could be hours or even days before he returned home. "One of us should get hit by a car," I said. "That would teach the both of them." I pictured Gretchen, her life hanging by a thread, as my parents paced the halls of Rex Hospital, wishing they had been more attentive. It really was the perfect solution. With her out of the way, the rest of us were more available and have a bit more room to spread out. "Gretchen, go lie in the street." "Make Amy do it," she said. Amy, in turn, pushed it on to Tiffany, who was the youngest and had no concept of death. "It's like sleeping," we told her, "only you get a canopy." Poor Tiffany, she'd do just about anything in return for a little affection. All you had to do was call her Tiff, and whatever you wanted was yours. Her allowance money, her dinner, the contents of her Easter basket. Her eagerness to please was absolute. When we asked her to lie in the middle of the street, her only question was, "Where?" We chose a quiet dip between 2 hills, a spot where drivers were almost required to skid out of control. She took her place, the 6-year-old in a butter-colored coat, and we gathered on the curb to watch. The first car to happen by belonged to a neighbor. a fellow Yankee who had outfitted his tires with chains and stopped a few feet from our sister's body. "Is that a person?" he asked. "Well, sort of," Lisa said. She explained that we'd been locked out of her house, and though the man appeared to take it as a reasonable explanation, I'm pretty sure it was him who told on us. Another car passed, and when we saw our mother, this puffy figure awkwardly negotiating the crest of the hill. She did not own a pair of pants, and her legs were buried to the calves in snow. We wanted to send her home, to kick her out of nature, just as she had kicked us out of the house, but it was hard to stay angry at someone so pitiful looking. "Are you wearing your loafers?" Lisa asked, and in response, our mother raised her bare foot. "I was wearing loafers," she said. "I mean, really, it was there a second ago." This was how things went. One moment she was locking us out of our own house, and the next we were rooting around in the snow looking for her left shoe. "Oh, forget about it," she said. "It'll turn up in a few days." Gretchen fitted her hat over my mother's foot. Lisa secured it with her scarf, and surrounding her tightly on all sides, we made our way back home.
So, kind of crazy family, huh? Thank you, Anna. Our next segment focuses on another December event, the winter solstice. As the shortest day of the year approaches, we may not be feeling any love toward the dark and cold it represents. The next two poems, however, remind us of the beauty of nature and some of the historical celebrations for the season. Kelsey from our circulation department will read them for us. Thank you, Kelsey.
Hi, everybody. So the first poem I'm reading today is called The Shortest Day by Susan Cooper. Author Susan Cooper is an English writer best known for The Dark is Rising, a contemporary fantasy series for teens. This poem was originally written in 1974 for a theatrical performance called The Christmas Revels, in celebration of the winter solstice. The Shortest Day by Susan Cooper. So the shortest day came, and the year died. And everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight to the shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And so do we, here, now, this year, and every year, welcome Yule. And then my second poem is called White Eyes by Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver, who lived from 1935 to 2019, won numerous poetry awards during the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award. Her poetry typically focused on the quiet occurrences in nature. She once said, "I am trying in my poems to have the reader be the experiencer. I do not want to be there. It is not even a walk we take together. So please try to imagine yourself as the experiencer in this winter scene." White Eyes by Mary Oliver. In winter, all the singing is in the tops of the trees, where the wind bird with its white eyes shoves and pushes among the branches. Like any of us, he wants to go to sleep, but he's restless. He has an idea, and slowly it unfolds from under his beating wings as long as he stays awake. But his big, round music, after all, is too breathy to last. So, it's over. In the pine crown he makes his nest. He's done all he can. I don't know the name of this bird. I can only imagine his glittering beak tucked in a white wing while the clouds, which he has summoned from the north, which he has taught to be mild and silent, thicken, and begin to fall into the world below like stars or feathers from some unimaginable bird that loves us, that is asleep now and silent, that has turned itself into snow.
Beautifully read, Kelsey. Thank you very much. This next piece is a rare treat for all of us, one I'm personally looking forward to. Aaron, our genealogy department assistant manager, is a staff member we sometimes refer to as our ACPL Renaissance man because of his wide range of talents, skills, and knowledge. Aaron has written an original poem for this occasion. He entitled it Walking Through December, and we'll read for it now. Thank you.
Walking through December. It is cold, very cold. But when I lift my eyes to the heavens and note that Orion's sword remains sheathed, I realize yet again that all is as it should be. The dry west wind moves through me. I am no impediment to its journey, nor, thankfully, is it strong enough to be a barrier for me. Still, we greet each other in our pilgrimages. The crisp fallen leaves taking loud note of my footsteps, as well as being buffeted by the moving air. Scattered at random on the mostly bare street are wisps of snow, subtle mini drifts that evidence the unpredictable in tiny eddies of air, little tornadoes that deposit the white in powdery arcs on the pavement. Like Pollock's paintbrush flung against the gray, the tiny piles of snow punctuate the new moon darkness, capturing the scattered starlight sent eons before. I am careful in this walk not to disturb this artistry with a footprint or with any other human interruption. Foolishly, I forget that I am part of the unfolding artwork too, as much as a chance participant as the wind and the stars. And even though I believe myself alone in this hour, I know I am not. For this is the time of year when those without a home move in the darkness. They move in the darkness to stay warm. These, too, are part of the December mosaic. Although nothing like the bustle of daylight, we are all moving through the night, whether tossing and turning in our beds, active in our dream worlds, or wandering the streets outside, seeking an elusive peace. And oh, those streets, passing between rows of houses where life continues to unfold in cycles of passion and tedium, plenty and want. Here now, in this fourth-floor apartment, a friend awaits death, attended to by her 2 daughters, one having come from a great distance to set her mother free. And here, almost newlyweds, sharing their first modest home with visions of forthcoming children and still naive with hope. Over there in a tiny space barely bigger than a mudroom, a talented singer, her art yielding to 2 jobs, maybe 3, living for the music that will sustain the spirit, but not fill the belly. It is dark, very dark, this vision of struggle that fills me as I ponder these souls making their way through this season of mystery. And oh, What mystery in our stories? Virgin births and everlasting lamp oil, candles unconsumed, flying sleds, longest nights, and the myth of justice. We need them, these stories. They are born of what we have learned through centuries of cold and dark, and of the light that always returns. So, the wind having relented, I begin to hear my own footsteps, the present reality releasing me from the prison of my musings. I awaken once again to my senses. From these rows of houses in the cold and dark, the yearly cycle is displayed in miniature as people awaken to live in yet another day. Here, an upstairs window is made bright, and then another, and then another. Soon will appear in doorways other creatures like me, bipeds with opposable thumbs and consciousness, to live into the light of a new day. There will be more cold to come, and darkness will be on the face of the deep. But light is coming too. Light is always coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect poem for today. Okay, who has watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Okay, a few of you. All right. In Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, what's the name of the island where Rudolph and his friends find themselves? Misfit Toys. Good job. Extra cookie for you. How about How the Grinch Stole Christmas? Is that one? You see? Okay, I thought so. In How the Grinch Stole Christmas, what is the name of the mountain where the Grinch lives? I'll give you some choices. Is it A, Mount Nasty, B, Mount Who Pew, C, Mount Crumpet, or D, Mount Banana Peel? What do you think? Mount Crumpet? Yep, that's right. It's C, Mount Crumpet. Yay! Good job. All right. Okay. Another December festival is Hanukkah, which Aaron's poem alluded to a few times. Hanukkah, or the Festival of Lights, is an 8-day celebration each year that celebrates the rededication of the second Jewish temple in Jerusalem. This year, Hanukkah was November 28th through December 6th, so the final celebration was just last night. Alan, the program director for our Access Fort Wayne department, will now read a remembrance of one particular Hanukkah season when a hospital employee went well out of his way to see that the Jewish nursing home residents that he cared for could have a complete menorah for the holiday. Alan?
I had a choice to make. Either drive the 90 minutes to see my family or go look for an extra bulb. My workday was over, and I certainly wasn't looking for more work. Now ought to be my time off when I could drive from the New York City Hospital and Rehabilitation Center where I worked as a recreation therapist to the warmth of loved ones in my home city of Philadelphia. Go home, Alan, a voice was telling me. You've done enough. But there was something wrong in what I was seeing, in what I had been seeing for the last number of days. In front of me was an electric menorah with an orange glowing shamash bulb and 7 other bulbs radiating with light. For the first 7 days of Hanukkah, before leaving late in the afternoon, I would turn the bulbs so that they would glow, adding 1 more for each day. It was the least I could do. In this hospital, which was ostensibly a nursing home, there were about 1,000 residents, of which around 10% were Jewish. Walking through the hospital, which was about a city block long, it seemed There were at least a couple dozen, maybe more, brightly decorated trees and other ornaments for the December 25th event. But for the 100 Jews or so, the only recognition of the holiday of Hanukkah was this one small electric menorah, which was in the recreation room on the first floor at the extreme right end of the building. There would be no lighting with oil or candles, as that was deemed a fire violation. This is why it became so important to me that these menorah lights should shine bright, and that the residents, all too many of whom had dementia or other age-related memory impairments, would have a visual cue that this holiday of religious self-expression and joy was upon them. Thankfully, I was able to organize a Hanukkah party, but that was only for an hour or two, and the holiday is around 192 hours long. My menorah lighting worked like a charm until the aforementioned night, when I was planning to drive to Philadelphia. I turned all the bulbs on, and when I got to the yet-to-be-used 8th one, it gave off no light. My rational side told me that a shamash and 7 lit bulbs was good too. But there was another side of me that was saying that so much has been taken away from these people with this meager acknowledgement of Hanukkah, and that so much has been taken away from them by their loss of memory, that I wanted them to have the correct number of bulbs. They deserved at least that much. So I took the long walk down the hallway to the main exit and made my way into the cold, dark night, hoping to find somehow, some way, one electric bulb that would work for this menorah. As I opened my car door, some doubt began to creep in. What if you don't find the bulb? Would all this ever have been worth it? I put those thoughts aside. As I pulled out of the hospital parking lot, I made my plan. I would drive about 1.5 miles to an avenue with a lot of commercial establishments and look for a hardware store. About 10 minutes later, I found such a store, but they didn't have that bulb. I asked if they knew of another place, and a sales clerk said, no. I rationalized that I had made an effort and that there was nothing more to be done and that it was time to head for Philadelphia. But then I had a thought. There's an Orthodox synagogue about 5 blocks away. Maybe they would have that bulb. So I drove there knowing that the prayer service was already finished and that there might not be anyone still in the building. As I pulled up to the synagogue, I saw 10 or 12 men who had been there for afternoon prayers, mostly retired gentlemen, filing out of the synagogue. I certainly wasn't going to ask them to go back in on a cold night and look for a bulb. My only hope was that there was still someone inside the synagogue. I parked and came to the door. If it were locked, that would be it. Everything has its limits. I was very grateful when the door opened. Although most of the lights were out, there was still one light left on in the entrance hallway and one in the sanctuary. Hello, I said. Anybody here? A few moments later, the sanctuary light went out and the door opened, and Morris Gallant, a man I'd say who was in his mid-70s, came out toward me. Happy Hanukkah, Mr. Gallant, I said, shaking his hand. Happy Hanukkah, Alan, he replied. What brings you here? The service is already over. I know that, I replied. Then I explained about the bulb I was looking for. He laughed and said, we don't use electric menorahs, we use oil. Okay, I replied. It was worth a shot. As I walked to the door to exit, I thought of all the time I had wasted in this unsuccessful venture. I could have been at the Verrazano Bridge by now. I opened the door and felt the cold air of the dark night upon me. Then I heard Mr. Gallant's voice. Wait a minute, he said. There was something hopeful in his tone. I think we had an electric menorah here about 20 years ago. Really? I said, coming back into the synagogue. "We may have stored it downstairs." Before I could say another word, he went and found a flashlight and handed it to me. "Shine that as I walk down the steps." I was happy to help, but I didn't see any steps. To my surprise, Mr. Gallant opened a trap door and began to gingerly walk down the steps that appeared more like the rungs of a ladder. I guided him to the best of my ability with the light of the flashlight. I heard him moving around down there, but couldn't see him anymore, and I hoped that the light I was sending down there was helping him. I heard boxes being moved around, then a voice. I don't see it. I encouraged him to come up, but he would have none of it. And at that moment, I realized how beautiful it was what he was doing, and that something good had come out of this, even if we didn't find the bulbs. Just that he would make such an effort for people he had never met warmed my heart. Looking for light and wanting light and not giving into darkness is a victory in and of itself. Even if the Maccabees had not found that pure cruse of oil, the fact that they were looking for it in a desecrated temple was an act of faith. Then I heard his triumphant words. "I found it! The menorah!" The sound of a box being opened, the sound of him moving things around in the box, thankfully gave way to him saying, "I found the bulbs." In a few moments, he was on his way up. He was holding a brown paper bag, and there was a look of joy on his face that comes when a person knows that they beat the odds to accomplish something. However, he was very realistic. "There are 9 bulbs in here," he said. "I don't know if any of them work. They've been in here for 20 years. You can have them. We don't need them anymore." I thanked him profusely, so much in fact that he told me to go already and see if any of the bulbs still functioned. On the ride back to the hospital, I thought of how wonderful it would be to see all the bulbs lit. I got to the parking lot and then walked at a brisk pace to the main entrance. The guard there was surprised to see me at such a late hour. I walked that half block down to the recreation room. As I entered and looked at the one unlit bulb, I had a strong hope that a little more light would soon be brought upon that room. I approached the electric menorah and unscrewed the malfunctioning bulb. I reached into the bag and took out the first bulb and began screwing it into that 8th slot. There's a certain point in turning it where you know that if it hasn't lit, it's not going to light. I had gone beyond that point and had twisted it in so tight that I wondered if I could get it out. But get it out I did, and I knew that it was 1 bulb down and 8 more to go. I repeated the procedure with the next bulb, and it too gave no light. Then the 3rd and 4th with the same lack of results. I was telling myself not to let this disappoint me. I had done all I could reasonably do. Next came the 5th, 6th, and 7th bulbs with no illumination at all. The 8th bulb also didn't work. It all came down to the last bulb. Realistically, I knew that the chances were incredibly slim for this bulb to work, while the others had not. But I could not let go of that hope. Would not let go of that hope. That maybe this one would glow. I didn't want to prolong the anticipation anymore, so I took the remaining bulb and started to screw it in. I never got a chance to tighten it as halfway through the turning, a bright orange light emanated from its center. It had worked. Sitting unused for many years, it was now bringing more light into the world. I was filled with such a joy that I must have stared at it and smiled for how long I do not know. In my heart, I thanked God, and I thanked Mr. Gallant, and I was so happy for the residents at that hospital that they would have a menorah that signified the correct day. The ride home to Philadelphia was very sweet.
Thank you, Alan. It's wonderful to hear a story about somebody beating the odds once in a while, right? Light in the darkness. Our last reading shares a different side to a familiar author. J.R.R. Tolkien, probably heard of that name before, right? Is best known for his epic fantasy, Lord of the Rings. But you may not know he was also the proud dad of 4 kids. And over the course of many years, between 1920 and 1942, he annually wrote and illustrated detailed, whimsical letters from Father Christmas for his children. He apparently was also very creative with the delivery of the letters in order to keep his children guessing about their origins. The letters were released posthumously by the Tolkien estate in 1976. Some readers feel that elements of these stories inspired parts of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Darton, our environmental services manager, will read a sampling of these letters for us. Thank you.
"1925. I am dreadfully busy this year. It makes my hand more shaky than ever when I think of it, and not very rich. In fact, awful things have been happening, and some of the presents have got spoiled, and I haven't got the North Polar Bear to help me, and I've had to move house just before Christmas. So you can imagine what a state everything is in, and you will see why I have a new address. It all happened like this. One very windy day last November, my hood blew off and went and stuck on the top of the North Pole. I told him not to, but the North Polar Bear climbed up to the thin top to get it down, and he did. The pole broke in the middle and fell on the roof of my house, and the North Polar Bear fell through the hole it made into the dining room with my hood over his nose, and all the snow fell off the roof into the house and melted and put out all the fires and ran down into the cellars where I was collecting this year's presents, and the North Polar Bear's leg got broken. He is well again now, but I was so cross with him that he says he won't try to help me again. I expect his temper is hurt and will be mended by next Christmas. I send you a picture of the accident and of my new house on the cliffs above the North Pole with beautiful cellars in the cliffs. If John can't read my old shaky writing, 1925 years old, he must get his father to. When is Michael going to learn to read and write his own letters to me? Lots of love to you both and Christopher, whose name is rather like mine." "1926. I am more shaky than usual this year. The North Polar Bear's fault. It was the biggest bang in the world and the most monstrous firework there has ever been. It turned the North Pole black and shook all the stars out of place, broke the moon into 4, and the man in it fell into my back garden. He ate quite a lot of my Christmas chocolates before he said he felt better and climbed back to mend it and get the stars tidy. Then I found out that the reindeer had broken loose. They were running all over the country, breaking reins, ropes, and tossing presents up in the air. They were all packed up to start, you see. Yes, it only happened this morning. It was a sleigh load of chocolate things, which I always send to England early. I hope yours are not badly damaged. But isn't the North Polar Bear silly? And he isn't a bit sorry. Of course he did it. You remember I had to move last year because of him? The tap turning on the Aurora Borealis fireworks is still in the cellar of my old house. The North Polar Bear knew he must never, never touch it. I only let it off on special days like Christmas. He says he thought it was cut off since we moved. Anyway, he was nosing around the ruins this morning soon after breakfast. He hides things there to eat. And turned on all the northern lights for 2 years in one go. You have never heard or seen anything like it. I've tried to draw a picture of it, but I am too shaky to do it properly, and you can't paint fizzing light, can you? Love from Father Christmas, 1926. "1928. What do you think the poor dear old bear has been and done this time? Nothing as bad as letting off all the lights. Only fell from top to bottom of the main stairs on Thursday. We were beginning to get the first lot of parcels down out of the storerooms in the hall. Polar Bear would insist on taking an enormous pile on his head as well as lots in his arms. Bang, rumble, clatter, crash, awful moanings and growlings. I ran out onto the landing and saw he had fallen from top to bottom onto his nose, leaving a trail of balls, bundles, parcels, and things all the way down, and he had fallen on top of some and smashed them. I hope you got none of these by accident. I have drawn you a picture of it all. Polar Bear was rather grumpy at my drawing it. He says my Christmas pictures always make fun of him, and that one year he will send one drawn by himself of me being idiotic. But of course I never am, and he can't draw well enough. When he had picked himself up, he ran out of doors and wouldn't help me clear up because I sat on the stairs and laughed as soon as I found that there was not much damage done. But anyway, I thought you would like a picture of the inside of my big new house for a change. This is the chief hall under the largest dome where we pile the presents usually, ready to load on the sleighs at the doors. Polar Bear and I built it nearly all ourselves and laid all the blue and mauve tiles. The banister and roof are not quite straight, but it doesn't really matter. I painted the pictures on the walls of the trees and stars and suns and moons. Top of the world, North Pole, Thursday, December 20th, 1928.
Thank you, thank you. Now we have a bonus selection, two very talented musicians on staff here. Lisa from our Business Science and Technology Department and Stacy, the manager of our Art, Music, and Media Department, will perform some seasonal musical pieces for us. We are so pleased that they're able to join us and share their talents. Thank you. What a wonderful way to finish our program. Thank you all for coming, and thank those of you who may be watching our live stream online. I hope you enjoyed the food and the readings, and special thanks, sincere special thanks to all the staff members who graciously offered to share their talents and time with us today. Wishing you all a wonderful December and happy holidays. Thank you.